Welcome to the Pat Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig AI Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's Pat Imig Sports Network, and it's football. We're heading off to the Super Bowl. My name is Pat Imig, and we are joined by the pro football guru, Russell Baxter, who, of course, has spent 40-plus years covering the NFL, 2+ decades at ESPN. And before we get into it, I just got to get something off my chest. Sean Payton did it again. Another NFL coach not taking the points. And yesterday, up 7-0 in the AFC Championship game, and chance to go up 10-0. Failed to take the points, just like Ben Johnson on the opening drive for the Bears against the Rams in the divisional round, and just like Liam Cohen, who was up 7-3, his Jaguars up 7-3 over Buffalo in the wild card round. Didn't take the field goal, went for it on fourth down, didn't convert it. And it's clear that it's an epidemic because these are all offensive coaches, and I'm all for aggressiveness, Russell. I love watching great offense. I think you have to be aggressive in today's game, but I think there comes a time and place for everything. Are you do you feel the same way as I do, or do you think that Sean Payton made the right call in that AFC title game?
I did not think he made the right call, and I say for this reason. I'm just going to, and I understand the epidemic thing, and I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, we've seen some Ben Johnson, I think it could be 4th and 35, and he's going to go for it.
Right.
But the thing about yesterday's game that struck me was, and I'm going to do a movie correlation here, and you'll understand where I'm going. When Jarrett Stidham hit that long pass downfield, I think it stunned the Patriots. Okay? And it kind of reminded me of, bear with me, when Rocky Balboa knocked down Apollo Creed for the first time in the first movie.
Okay.
Okay? What a surprise. Okay? If you remember when you watched the movie the first time, you weren't expecting that. And I don't think the Patriots were expecting what they got. And all of a sudden they're down 7-0, and they are unable to move the football at all. Remember, Drake Maye, offensive line in front of him, he's been sacked like 15 times in 3 playoff games, I think it is.
Right.
And they've had a few turnovers. He had a few turnovers, not, none yesterday and so on. So when the Broncos, who just methodically moved their way down the field, not what a bunch of chunk plays, just effective offense, and got in a position to put another 3 points on the board and open up a 2-score lead, I was perplexed to why he didn't do it, because they were the underdog.
Right.
And when you're the underdog and you put doubt in the mind of the team that is quote unquote expected to win, the other team has a tendency to get a little panicky. Now, who knew what was going to happen? Mr. Freeze showed up and was blinding for the second half. But the bottom line is, I agree with you. I didn't understand why in that position, maybe in a different position with, a different offense, but this was going to be a limited offense where you couldn't afford to make a mistake. And eventually Stidham did make a couple of mistakes. So I know it's easy to say afterwards, but you are right in the sense that there seems to be an overabundance of going for it on fourth down. And it's almost like the game of, can you top this? I'm going to go for it on fourth down more than you are. Nah.
It's almost like they get like a junkie getting its fix, his or her drug fixed.
Right.
And I think that I was thinking about when this all kind of started. And again, I'm a huge fan of having offensive minded coaches as head coaches.
Sure.
They can only be one or the other, right? But we've got 2 defensive head coaches, Mike McDonald, Mike Vrabel, both represent the head coaches of the Super Bowl teams. But they've got great offensive coordinators. Thinking back to when this all started, it's all kind of been like the last 5-6 years, I feel like. And I was trying to think of like what was the inception of all this, and now that I think of it here on the spot, I almost feel like the Eagles with their tush push, they were
Mm-hmm.
they were kind of the first team to like become like a 4-down team. And it kind of makes sense for their style because their whole thing is if they get it to 3rd and short or 4th and short, they do the tush push. And that has evolved from doing that to, well, we're just going to go for it on 4th and 4 at our own 38-yard line because we have confidence in the offense. And when I think of that, that's, Ben Johnson and the Bears, that's Dan Campbell and the Lions. And based off of Lions fans who are commenting online on I sent out a video just about this very thing, about the 4th down stuff. They're basically saying we lost our season because of failed 4th down attempts, mainly because they were in the if they weren't in the red zone, they were in field goal range. So at some point you have to just take the points and give your defense a chance, which again, 2 defensive head coaches making the Super Bowl this year, I don't think that's necessarily a coincidence. So
well, the one thing about 4th down too, Pat, is, at least in my mind, that going for it on 4th down, there's an element of surprise to it.
Sure.
Okay. There's are they going to really run the play?
Right.
And just maybe try to get in the draw off sides? But there's an element of surprise. If you keep on going for it or 4th down, you take the element of surprise completely out of it. So I have no doubt, because this is what teams do in the offseason, and coaches and coordinators, they go back and look at some of these 4th down packages that teams are doing. I mean, Ben Johnson kept on going for it, and not with a lot of success. It wasn't like they were maintaining drives.
Right.
Okay. They were
doing like the same.
Field.
It was like he was doing the same run to the right side for like
right.
3 or 4 of the plays. And that was the other complaint I had about that. It's like I disagree with most of his decisions in that game against the Rams to go for it. But then I also really disagree with the play calls, because why are you not leaving the ball in the hands of your biggest playmaker, which is also going to give you more options and maybe keep the element of surprise, because he can either run it, throw it, or some combination of both. Aside from all of that, I could go on for hours about that. What did you make? You mentioned Drake Maye taking all the hits. This, not just yesterday, but in these playoffs, all the times he's been sacked. So what do you make of how they have basically survived? And that's not even, I don't say that negatively. I'm not saying that to take credit away from the Patriots, because a lot of times those early Patriots championship teams, they were just the team that didn't screw up and didn't make mistakes. Oh. And that's what that's what Drake Maye and Vrabel and these guys, I think, have done. So how does that line up for you as you look at what they've done against who they've faced, 3 of the top 5 defenses in the league, which I believe, I've seen that is like an actual first time ever that a team's defeated 3 top 5 defenses to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure. We'll have to confirm that at some point, but they've got a daunting task ahead of them. So what's kind of your diagnosis of their offense right now, of their defense, as they get ready for the Super Bowl before we hit into the NFC?
Well, one thing I'll say about yesterday's game that I just want to point out is the one thing that impressed me about Drake Maye yesterday was he wasted little when it wasn't there and he had the ability to run downfield, he gashed them with long runs. And that then had Denver's pass rush a little bit on its heels and so on. Now, this Seattle team,
the clinching run that they made was a great play call too.
And he had another long one there, long one as well, and so on. So it reminded me of going back to Super Bowl 19. Joe Montana at the time set a Super Bowl record for rushing yards by a quarterback, because once he felt the Dolphins come upfield, he didn't even hesitate. He headed downfield. And that put them on their heels when the quarterback, I mean, this is decades before the elusive quarterbacks we have now with Michael Vick and Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and so on. This was, obviously Super Bowl 19, it's 41 years ago. So I think a lot of times if you can make the defense think it's like throwing a long pass on first down and trying to open up the field.
Right.
So
So let's go ahead and just clickbait it right now, Zach. Russell Baxter compares Drake Maye to Joe Montana. Russell Baxter says he's the next Joe Montana. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't say that. You did make a good comparison, though.
I may have.
Definitely those are hot
or I
takes,
may
though.
not have.
That's
How's
right.
that?
You may not have.
There you go.
I think along the lines of Drake Maye and running the ball, that's where, and again, the MVP debates and the Coach of the Year debates, it's just something that's fun to talk about. Once they actually get announced, I feel like no one really cares. But to me, it's been Drake Maye over Stafford all year simply because of that run element. And that's showing the true value of him with that Patriots team, because I think with any other quarterback this year, I don't think the Patriots are 14-3, the way that they're built.
Right.
But you were going to move on with the Seahawks, or on to the Seahawks regarding the Patriots. So what's on your mind with that?
Yeah. What struck me, and it struck me about Seattle for most of the year, but particularly yesterday's game. I remember I actually texted somebody with this comment and so on. This is a shootout, but it's still a physical football game. That was a very physical football game between Seattle and the Rams. Maybe because of the rivalry, whatever. A very hard hitting game, and yet the Rams, well over 400 yards. Seattle was near 300 yards. The Rams were actually able to run the ball on Seattle. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, unbelievable. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, but it was a wide receiver fest. But
I'm glad you brought him up
with the violence, huh?
I said I'm glad you brought JSN up because I wanted to ask you, and I'll just ask you before I forget. Playing off of the Drake Maye, Joe Montana, I know that we don't ever subscribe to the is he the next so and so, and it's like no, he's the next Jaxon Smith-Njigba. But when you watch him play, does he any receivers of the past does he remind you of, or any elements? Because he is so smooth, and he's not a very big guy. He's a strong receiver, but anybody come to mind from the past when you watch him?
I think there's a certain. I haven't really thought about this, but when I think of smooth, a lot of times I think of Marvin Harrison.
Interesting.
Of the Colts.
Yeah.
And because he would, he always seemed like it was pretty effortless, and yet he certainly made his share of spectacular catches. He's one of the great receivers of all time, and productive as hell. But when I think smooth, I think that's what I think of. I mean, it's not that he's a super burner, but his hands are superb. And then on the other hand, I think I'm still waiting for Puka Nacua to drop a pass.
Right.
When you look on the other side as well. I mean, he's effortless, and he's done it in all kinds of different ways and varieties and shapes and sizes this year. I mean, impressive. So that was fun to watch yesterday in that regard. But that Seattle defense, even though they weren't great against the run, the violence of which they play with, the speed of which they play with, watching that game, and then earlier watching the Patriots game, even before the storm hit, it's like one record playing at 33 and the other one at 78.
Which is your way of saying one team looks supremely better than the other. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I think one team looks faster than the other. Okay. And I think the Seahawks have a definitive edge offensively because I think they're more balanced than New England. Okay. Seattle made big strides on the offensive line this year. They still have some work to do, but they basically cut their sacks allowed in half. Last year it was 54. This year I think it was less than 30. Maybe it's near 30 after the two playoff games, because I think Darnold was sacked 3 times yesterday. I tell you, some really hard-hitting sacks yesterday by the Rams. Some people were, there were edge defenders or guys up the middle who really came free and had a running start yesterday. I mean, that game had a little bit of everything. And of course, the thing it had that you had to count on was Rams special teams, doing their duty to once again, wind up
Yeah.
hurting them in a bad
Well,
way. But
that got canceled out by the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Seattle after that 4th and 12,
right.
or on the 4th and 12, which, I was pulling for Seattle for whatever reason, and I was just like, wow, that's a terrible way to. I think both of those were like equally awful for the other team. What's great about both of the offensive plays following that, the Rams go straight to Nacua, get a touchdown. Earlier in the game when that fumble hits, Seattle right away goes to the tight end for the touchdown. So both of those offenses going for the dagger right after a big momentum swing, which, I would argue that both of those teams yesterday would beat the Denver Broncos even with Bo Nix, and I think that either of them would beat I think I'm picking Seattle to beat New England. I think if the Rams were facing New England, I'd probably go New England simply because they'll do less things to hurt themselves, which, now that we know it's Seattle and New England, in that category, you think of Sam Darnold. He had probably like one or two moments yesterday one or two moments in the NFC title game. The botched snap that was snapped right to him, and he just dropped it, and maybe there was a miscommunication, fell on it, and then the next play he got sacked. That was kind of a Darnold moment, but it didn't cost them. He didn't turn the ball over. And then even when he did have pressure, he made great plays on the run. He's never the most fluid or dynamic-looking scrambler, and sometimes looks panic-stricken, but he still makes great throws. So, if he holds it to one turnover or less, I think Seattle has this one, and clearly they're the favorite right now. I think they're 4.5-point favorites to New England. How are you feeling about the outcome of the Super Bowl, as we're still a little bit away because there is the 1 week break? But right now, who's your favorite to win?
Well, let me go back to Sam Darnold for a second because
Okay.
I just got done posting a piece.
Okay.
And you were talking about the turnovers.
Sure.
And Sam Darnold has done something he hasn't done all year.
Uh-oh. This is good news,
3
though.
straight games without a turnover.
So that's it. I mean, that's the secret to the success.
The two wins over the 49ers and then the win over the Rams. Now, to put that in perspective, he turned over the ball 20 times in the first 16 games. He had at least one turnover in 11 of those 16 games, 11 or 10 or whatever it is. Okay, he had that stretch in the middle of the year where he had 10 turnovers in a 4-game stretch, which included the 4-pick game against the Rams in the regular season. But that's not been the case in these last 3 games, which I think he's also completing nearly 73% of his passes. He didn't throw as much against the Niners in the regular season finale or the divisional playoff game. He threw a lot yesterday. So if he's hanging on to the football, that's bad news for a New England team. Although I will say New England has 8 takeaways in these 3 playoff games in beating the Chargers, the Texans, and the Broncos.
3 of those, I guess, were, were from C.J. Stroud, right?
C.J. Stroud was 4. He threw 4 in the first half, 4 picks in the first half.
Right. So
yeah, he had more picks than a gambler in that game.
He did. It was tough to watch. You almost started to feel bad for him. So with the way that Seattle's defense can control games against lesser offenses, I feel like their defense matches up pretty well with anybody, and I think that they match up well with New England. So I think for New England to win, the game has to be like 20-17, and they have to force a handful of turnovers. But I could be wrong. How do you envision that game going from the standpoint of Drake Maye versus the defensive line of Seattle? Because he's going to have, if he does what Stafford does, where he just gets rid of the ball quickly, then they can mitigate some of that.
Yeah, and maybe Hunter Henry turns out to be a big factor in the game, or what the tight ends or the running backs or whatever in there, the underneath the passing game. But I think New England might also be encouraged by the fact that the Rams were able to run on Seattle. So and turn this into a low-scoring, conservative game. Um, you know, when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, which ironically, like you mentioned, a 2017 win over the Rams,
I remember.
you will recall that in that game, their offense scored one touchdown.
Right.
They got a pick six from Ty Law. They got a couple of unitary field goals, and they won. That 2000, you alluded to this earlier in our conversation. The 2001 Patriots played three playoff games. Their offense scored three touchdowns. Their defense and special teams scored three touchdowns, and they walked away a Lombardi Trophy. There are so many ways to win in this league because this game is crazy with the bounces and so I remember when they beat Pittsburgh in the AFC title game, Brady was out. Drew Bledsoe threw the touchdown pass, and then they got a Troy Brown punt return, they got a blocked field goal return, and all of a sudden they win at Pittsburgh. So
I will say to your point, I think Seattle has the better special teams. I think they've got the better offense. And I think that defensively, I think they have a better defense. I think that New England's defense is right there with them, but I think they edge them out in everything. So I'm going Seattle.
Well,
it sounds like you're not sure yet.
Well, no, I like Seattle. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I'm just trying to envision how it'll be played because, and trust me, I'm sure there are people out there waiting for Darnold to implode again.
Right.
Okay. And there's nothing to say that they can't. Okay, depending on what Vrabel and their defense has in mind. I thought their defense played very well in the second half yesterday, and they don't have like a lot of flashy players or anything. So
they definitely.
It's just going to be an interesting chess match here because the one thing you just said about the special teams, I'll disagree on. The one thing New England, I believe, is very good, and you saw it early on. They have a special teams gunner who seems like he gets there almost before the punt gets to the player. So now Rashid Shaheed, it's safe to say, has made an impression.
Right.
With the Seahawks since he got there. He has returned two kickoffs. He's returned a punt. Yesterday, the third play of the game, he caught a 51-yard pass. When they beat the Rams, on a Thursday night, Seattle. I can't remember the length of the run, but he ran a reverse that gained a lot of yards. So they have picked their spots with him. I mean, and when they made the trade, I think people envisioned him and Jaxon Smith-Njigba being this 1-2 tandem with Cooper Kupp handling the underneath stuff. So it really hasn't worked out that way. But Cooper Kupp has been okay this season. I mean, you've got the NFL leader in receiving yards who seemed like they couldn't cover him for anything yesterday.
Right.
Whatsoever. That Rams defense really kind of came apart the second half of the season. And I think it was the Panthers of all things that really kind of exposed them. I mean, think about this in two playoff games, one loss, 1-1, the Rams alone gave up 31 points.
Right. Yeah, well, we've been on that train since December or November. It is a soft defense. So not surprised with the results, not surprised with who's in the Super Bowl. We're both on the Seahawks victory train. As we head out, you'll still be firing away on SI, correct, with the Seahawks? And then are you doing off?
Yes, especially with the Seahawks and so on, and some stuff on NFL Spin Zone. This is one of my favorite times of year where you get all those little Super Bowl nuggets. Like this is the first time since 2003 that two teams who didn't make the playoffs are in the Super Bowl. That was Carolina and New England.
And this is also the first time ever that a quarterback born in the 21st century is starting in the Super Bowl, that being Drake Maye. So does that make you feel old?
Okay. That's interesting.
Does that make you feel old?
And if you remember Super Bowl 38, I believe the MVP was Janet Jackson.
That's right. Was that the wardrobe malfunction? That was
whatever you want to call it.
That was a shockingly, I don't say shockingly, I guess that's not, but that was a very, on paper, you didn't know what to expect with that Super Bowl. That was a great Super Bowl with Delhomme.
Well, there were two things I remember about I was at that game. Two things I remember about that game. there was no scoring in the first quarter, and there was no scoring in the third quarter. All the points were scored in the second quarter and the fourth quarter. Second, as shocking as it was on TV about Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, do you recall that a fan actually got out on the field?
I forgot about this.
Yes. So we're 2 years removed from 9/11, and somehow some goofball managed to get on the field.
It's football.
Which I was like, yeah. He must have. Maybe he was trying to catch up with Janet.
Could have been.
Here's one nugget I'll also send out, because New England, one way or another, is going to make Super Bowl history.
Okay.
Next week. If they win, they will become the first franchise to win 7 Super Bowls. If they lose, they will become the first franchise to lose 6 Super Bowls.
Wow. There it is. History making Super Bowl one way or the other. Super Bowl 60
there you
in
go.
San Francisco. He's pro football guru Russell Baxter. My name is Pat Imig. You can follow Russell also on SI, follow his work, and then at Bax Football Guru on X, Twitter, and follow us at Get Pissin', and you can follow me at Pat Imig. That's Patimig. Russell, it was great to speak with you, and we'll catch up again, likely after the Super Bowl, I think, in the offseason. Does this sound good to you?
I'm at your command.
Sounds like a plan. That's a dangerous statement. We're going to record that, though, just so you remember.
And I'm going to record that for my lawyer as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, Russell.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Enjoy the Super Bowl, everyone.
Thanks for watching the Pat Imig Sports Network, powered by Imig.ai. For exclusive sports content and clips you can't find anywhere else, follow along on social media at Get Pissin'.
Every single night, from the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never fall. Every win got a story, I tell it all. Last minute buzzer beaters, ice in the vein. Post game speeches and champagne rain. From the World Cup heat to the Super Bowl lights, calling plays in the zone. Open up your eyes, Big Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Epidemic Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Talking MVPs, yeah, I see the vision. Grinding for the chip, this is more than a mission. Trade talks, headlines, locker room vibes. Breaking news quicker than a 40-yard time guide. Eyes on the court, hard in the ring. Every athlete's journey, I let that sing. Olympic gold to college ball pride. If it's clutch, I got it covered worldwide. Epidemic Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Epidemic Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork.